What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different this week. Just like last week when I had Luke Papala on. Shout out to him again. I appreciate you coming on. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. We talked a lot about World War III possibilities, as well as everything else that's going on in this country and honestly around the world, because I feel like we can never be too informed. So, I just took a break from doing the motivational stuff. I feel like I said before, I've reiterated this many times. I feel like there's only a certain amount of that you want to consume in a period of time. So again, I appreciate all my listeners and I'm very grateful. Trying to get to 100 subscribers. We're about nearly halfway there. So, keep the subscriptions coming. I really appreciate it. You're helping out the channel greatly. And thank you all who are subscribed right now. I really appreciate that, and I'm very grateful. So this week, we're going to take a little break again. No motivational content. Next week's episode is going to be a real good one for that. So be sure to stay tuned and keep supporting the channel. You're going to be in for a real treat next week. So this week, we're going to take a little break with that. And I know I have a lot of people who watch my channel who love sports. So, we're in the midst of the NFL season, the midst of college football in full swing. A lot of news to break today, especially more recently. And then we're going to talk about what's going on in college football. I'm going to give my opinion on it, and a lot of the Ohio State fans are going to maybe appreciate it, maybe scrutinize me for it. But again, I don't care. I'm a hurricane. It's all about the U, and that's how it will always be, for me at least. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in college football. I'm going to talk a little bit about specific teams. I will talk about Miami a little bit because I am biased like that. So I'm going to do that. We're going to talk a little bit about the college football playoff and the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's going to be weeks and weeks away and a couple months away going into next year. So, and I'm going to give my final predictions on the college football playoff, who I think is going to make it, who I think the national championship is going to be, and I will also give my take on the Super Bowl and who I think is going to participate in that. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about the game last night. Well, for my listeners, it would have been last Thursday. Pittsburgh and the Tennessee Titans. Oh boy. So Matt Canada decided to make a change for once and stay on the sidelines rather than be inside the press box with some of the other coaches. Well, I think I speak for all Pittsburgh fans is that we still can't stand Matt Canada and his play calling. The first drive of that game had tremendous promise. Pittsburgh wanted to receive the ball after winning the coin toss. That's odd because we have a stellar defense. Wait a second. We drove down the length of the field and scored a touchdown on an opening drive? Are you kidding me? Like, wow, just throw a parade in Pittsburgh already for that. I thought that was going to be a sign of things to come. I don't know. I still don't think Matt Canada is the answer at all. I think all Pittsburgh fans would agree with that. His play calling is just so predictable. Najee Harris right, Najee Harris left. Screen to Jalen Warren, throw it up to George Pickens or Deontay Johnson. Rinse and repeat. Hope the defense comes up with big stops and everything. That has been Pittsburgh in a nutshell for the past 2 to 3 years. Even the last year with Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback when Pittsburgh started 11-0 and then, of course, lost to Washington. And we all know how the rest of that season turned out. Evan, Nick, all my Browns fans know how that season ended. You too, Pat. I never hear the end of it from you. So Pittsburgh's offense has been inept, to say the least, for the past couple years. No offensive line to speak of. Najee Harris. I love Najee Harris, but I would have rather have traded him at the deadline. That's just me personally. I think he's a great player, but I don't know what it is. It feels like he lost a step from the previous couple years. I think this is either his third or fourth year in the league, but he's a bell cow back. And not necessarily, he's not a bad running back, but if Pittsburgh had a better O-line, I wouldn't be saying this at all. So in retrospect, it's really my non-belief in the Steelers' offensive line to create any sort of holes for Jaylen Warren or for Najee Harris. So I guess I can't really fault Najee, but some cases I did see when the O-line actually opened up holes, he misses them. So I don't know. For me, it feels like he lost a step. It feels like he's slower than he was in previous years. I know he's a bell cow back. He's a power runner, but at the same time, it seemed like he just got slower over the past couple years. So, it is what it is. We didn't make a move. Obviously, he scored a touchdown last night, had a great day rushing the ball. Offensive line overall, they didn't play horrible, but again, there's no reason against this Tennessee team that it should come down to the wire. Will Levis, kudos to him for getting the job over, I believe it was Malik Willis for Tennessee because Ryan Tannehill is out with an injury. Ryan Tannehill wasn't doing anything either, so he already was having a piss-poor season. But, so retrospect, my final thoughts and opinions on the game, I still think Matt Canada needs to go. I still think his play calling is too predictable. I sat there last night and predicted a run right, a screen left, whatever it may be. I predicted it all. If a fan of a sports league, if a fan of a team can predict what that team is going to do, I think that's an issue. We're supposed to sit there and enjoy the game and enjoy the product that they're putting out and, hopefully strive to win a Super Bowl. However, if I can sit in front of my TV and predict everything before it happens, I think that's a big issue. So still, I think Matt Canada needs to go. I don't know what to say about Kenny Pickett. I think a lot of his issues stem from Matt Canada and poor O-line play. So, the jury's still out on that. I'm not going to make a decision on Pickett necessarily right now. I'll probably make that decision. I'll create another opinion on that later in the season. I just need to see how this ends up. But knowing Pittsburgh, again, our standard is, it dipped over the past couple years. Our standard is, in the eyes of many, winning season. Okay, when do we stop with that? When do we draw the line and say, no, our standard is Super Bowls? That's how this organization has been for 50 years. There's a reason we're obviously tied with New England. Still makes me sick to this day. Makes me want to throw up in my mouth that Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls, the same amount as Pittsburgh and New England. It baffles me. I really don't understand how we could have dropped off so much. It's ridiculous, especially that time period where it was Le'Veon Bell, a great offensive line, Antonio Brown in his prime, Ben Roethlisberger in his prime. I don't understand how the defense was just so piss poor. I just don't understand the personnel choices that we've made over the years. Now our defense is stellar. TJ Watt, arguably the best defensive player in the league, and I would make that argument, and a lot of people who are not fans of Pittsburgh, are not fans of TJ Watt, can agree they can agree on that. Myles Garrett, terrific player, but he's a close second, in my opinion. At least in the entire league, at least right now, I think TJ Watt might be the best player in the league. If TJ Watt doesn't play, Pittsburgh doesn't win. That's just how it is. It's unfortunate. I wish that wasn't the case, but whenever TJ Watt's out, Pittsburgh struggles to win football games. That's just the reality of it. So I would put Watt in as the best defensive player in the league, followed by Myles Garrett, followed by Aaron Donald. Even though Aaron Donald I don't even really think he's fallen off. I just think the Rams have just been a shit show the past 2 years. Ever since they won that Super Bowl, they sold their soul to win that Super Bowl, trading Jared Goff for Matt Stafford, which I understood the move. I really did. But now you look at Jared Goff, he's playing like an MVP candidate in Detroit. So, I'm one of the few supporters who still believed in Jared Goff. Jeff Fisher was just a horrible coach to start off Goff's career with the Rams. Jeff Fisher was awful. But then comes Sean McVay. All of a sudden, Jared Goff is in the Super Bowl. I think it was within the first 2 years that Sean McVay actually got there, changed the entire culture, and basically flipped that whole roster. So, yeah, that's my final opinions basically on that shit. Pittsburgh has got to do much, much better in the future, especially when it comes to the offensive line. And Tomlin's just got to stop being so loyal. I get it. Pittsburgh has always been an organization of loyalty. I understand that. Loyalty is not a bad thing in this world at all. But in sports, being too loyal is a thing. There is such thing as too much loyalty when it comes to sports franchises and how they conduct their business. So that's my take on the game. I don't think Tennessee's going to amount to much. But Pittsburgh, realistically, do I think we'll probably go 9-8, 10-7, give or take, and make a wild card and then get bounced in the first round. Just because Pittsburgh has beaten Alex Smith with 8 field goal attempts, Matt Moore when he played for the Dolphins, and one other. I can't even remember. But the last 3 playoff wins Pittsburgh has been against subpar quarterback play. We haven't beaten a Peyton Manning. We haven't beaten a Tom Brady. We just haven't. Can't beat Mahomes. Can't beat Josh Allen. That's just the case right now. Maybe it can change. I hope so. I pray for it. But we'll see what happens. So let's transition a little bit into college football. Now, many college football fans, myself included, have been paying very close attention to the shit going on in Ann Arbor with Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. So, sign stealing. Is it necessarily such a bad thing? I don't think so. Just because throughout any sport, we could take the Houston Astros, for instance, big-time cheaters, and they got caught with their fucking dick in their hand, and, they faced suspensions for it justly. It was what the Astros did in baseball. It deliberately, if I know what pitch is coming and I decide to smack it out of the park, obviously that's asinine. That level of cheating, especially when it came to winning the World Series, how much of their success was dependent on that sign stealing from the other teams, stealing pitches. It's like, that was asinine, and they should have been stripped of their World Series title. They still weren't, but hey, that's why I'm not the commissioner of baseball. But some people I know have been comparing what Jim Harbaugh is doing to what the Astros did. And I really do not understand that. It's like, I'm trying to compare it to like a situation in real life. So Jim Harbaugh is shitting in the urinal while other coaches are pissing on the seat. You get what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's bad, but the worst part is Jim Harbaugh is getting caught doing it. I guarantee you everybody in the nation when it comes to college football coaches are involved in some way with sign stealing. Don't tell me Nick Saban is innocent on it. Don't tell me Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Jim Harbaugh. None of them. All of them in some capacity steal signs. That's what scouting's all about. You learn other teams' tendencies, and you learn, what personnel is going with which. You learn the signals. It's like you learn that shit. However, obviously, with what Harbaugh is doing in Michigan, it's up in arms over what he's doing. But here's my big issue with it. And in an article, there's an article on ESPN written by a Pete Thamel. This is from November 2nd, 2023. The title of this, sources say, ADs offer support, but tell Commish Big Ten must step up. Okay, what exactly do you want the Big Ten to do? Because I believe by the bylaws in the NCAA, if they were to file a motion against Michigan for their sign stealing, whatever motion they would send forward, I believe they have 90 days to comply with that. Well, guess what? Season's over. The Natty's been played. On to the offseason. I don't believe anything definitively is going to get done to Michigan in this case. Now, Harbaugh is getting caught red-handed with doing all this. But I don't think it's necessarily bad. And my biggest issue when it comes to all this is how it all started. The first allegations of the sign stealing were brought up by Michigan State. That is my big problem with this entire thing. Michigan State has no right whatsoever to judge other institutions on how they're carrying themselves. Cheating, regardless, doesn't matter. Michigan State has absolutely no breathing room whatsoever to even acknowledge the situation or even suggest an opinion on what should be done to Michigan, Harbaugh, their program, their university, whatever. They have no business doing this because of what Michigan State's head football coach Mel Tucker was doing at Michigan State. Ridiculous. This other article on ESPN written by Dan Murphy on October 25th, 2023. It makes me sick just thinking about it. It really does. It makes my stomach curl. But Mel Tucker violated the sexual misconduct policy, says Michigan State. That's the title of the article. You guys can read it. So I'm going to read a little bit of it. So, a hearing officer at Michigan State determined Wednesday that former football coach Mel Tucker violated the school's sexual misconduct policy during his interactions with Brenda Tracy, a sexual assault prevention speaker hired by the athletic department. Tracy filed a sexual harassment claim with the university last December, saying that Tucker made unwanted sexual advances after the two met when she was hired to speak to the football team about sexual abuse awareness and prevention. And Michigan State is going to stand up and judge what Harbaugh is doing? I don't think so. That's not how this shit works. Like, I get it. That's a hot topic right now. Where was the outcry? I didn't see. So all the coaches, now I could be missing it because maybe I just didn't pay attention. Maybe just because it made me so sick to my stomach even thinking about this, that any coach or anyone in general would ever do some shit like this. That's one thing that makes me absolutely sick. It's ridiculous. But all the coaches in the Big Ten are up in arms over what Michigan is doing with the sign stealing. I didn't hear this level of outcry when it came to Mel Tucker. Where the hell was all the coaches when it came to that? Now, I could be completely wrong. I could be 100% wrong. Maybe there was. I didn't hear about it. All I've been hearing, like on ESPN First Take, The Herd with Collin Cowherd, it's just, can we prioritize what is really wrong, like in college football? Mel Tucker in Michigan State, that's wrong. Sign stealing, you just pissed on the floor accidentally in the urinal. Like, you just pissed on the floor in the bathroom. Like I said before, all coaches steal signs. All coaches are pissing on the toilet seats when Harbaugh is found shitting in the urinal. So that's basically what it is. But for Michigan State to go out and start this, obviously they did it to take heat off their institution. I'm pretty sure that'd be the most logical thing that they would try to do. Michigan State has absolutely no right whatsoever to judge Harbaugh or even open their mouths about the issue when they got this shit happening right under their noses. Now, I do not know whether, I don't know any updates on the Mel Tucker situation. I don't. I think it's ridiculous and, okay, yeah. So if I do remember correctly, I believe they did let Mel Tucker go, which rightfully so. But jail time would be nice for him too, possibly. Again, I'm not entirely sure how the whole situation unfolded. So I guess we'll wait and see as time moves on, and we'll see how that turns out. But back to Michigan stealing signs with Ohio State. Well, not necessarily Ohio State, but just stealing signs in general. I'm sure they're probably doing it to scout Ohio State too, which, all them Buckeye fans are going to be pissed off. But I'm going to play a little snippet of The Herd with Collin Cowherd, Joel Klatt. He's a Fox Sports college football analyst. He was on Collin's show, and he talked a little bit about the whole situation when it comes to Michigan and how people are in uproar and they want the Big Ten to step up and do something about it. So I'm going to play this, and I'll put it up on screen for all of you. You can really see why I'm in alignment with him when he says that, this shit really isn't going to be done. Anything's going to be done this year. So I'm going to play a little bit of for you, and I'll put it up on screen so you guys can listen.
I don't think that there's any chance that anything comes to fruition this year, just by NCAA bylaws in and of themselves. Let's just say, for sake of argument, that the NCAA gave a notice of allegations to Michigan tomorrow.
All right.
Bylaws say that they've got 90 days to respond.
That's right.
Season's over.
Yeah.
So, everyone's like, well, someone's going to have to do something this year. No one's going to do anything this year. This season is going to play out. And now, by the way, you actually get a cleaner back end of the season than what you would if this didn't come out until after the year.
See? So I was right. I'm pretty sure, he's right. What is the Big Ten going to do? Honestly, what can they do? What penalty and what I'm going to leave this in the I want you to leave in the comments below. All of you who are college football fans or Michigan fans or Ohio State fans, I want you to leave in the comments below. What do you think the appropriate penalty for Michigan would be, if indeed at all a penalty is induced on the institution or Harbaugh in general? So I want you to leave in the comments what you think the appropriate penalty would be for Michigan like this. And if anybody says they should forfeit their season, they shouldn't be allowed to go in the conference championship, they shouldn't be allowed in the college football playoff, if he ended up winning it, J.J. McCarthy shouldn't win the Heisman or anything like that. That is absolutely ludicrous. This issue is not comparable to other issues that have happened in college football over the past 20 to 30 years. If you think about it, I'm going to talk about a little bit about my institution, the Nevin Shapiro shit, the booster who was involved in a Ponzi scheme and stole millions and millions and millions of dollars from, I believe it was from investors, from the institution itself. So, in a sense, Miami had a guy who was involved with a Ponzi scheme defrauding the federal government. And yet, Miami paid the price for that. Scholarship bans, bowl bans, the works when it came to that program. And rightfully so, at least in my opinion, they let this guy get close to the institution and everything. So, yeah, that happened. But necessarily, I personally hated it. I didn't grow up during that time. All this stuff came out when I was about 7 years old, and I was just starting to like college football, and Miami was the first team I ever watched when I lived down in Florida. So, that's a team I fell in love with, and I don't really know the whole situation anymore. I used to read about it religiously, especially on ESPN's 30 for 30 films, the U. That was discussed in the U Part 2 a couple years ago. So, yeah. What Jim Harbaugh is doing in Michigan does not compare to situations like the past. It doesn't compare to situations like the Nevin Shapiro scandal years and years ago. So, that is what it is. I'm more up in arms about Michigan State's issue. Again, I do not know how much has come to fruition out of that. I will read more on it into that and then talk about it in a later podcast episode I decided to do later down the road. But another article that was written by The Athletic by Bruce Feldman, great analyst. Another topic was Big Ten football coaches frustrated with conference stance on Michigan. We want something done now. Nothing is going to get done now. Like I said before, how bad is sign stealing compared to everything else that you can be accused of cheating for? Like, it's different with the Astros. The Astros, if you know what pitch is coming, as a hitter, you don't have to think too much. You know a fastball is coming. You know a splitter's coming. You know a curveball is coming, a changeup. It doesn't matter. You know, and you know how to adjust your swing accordingly. With football, it's way different when it comes to sign stealing. Yeah, it may help you for a couple drives, but you still have to go out there and stop it. You still have to go out there, make the plays, and stop them. You get what I mean? It's like I just don't understand it. I think it's completely and utterly ridiculous. So, I'm just going to leave it be there. So that's my whole thought. Do I personally think Michigan should be suspended or the institution should forfeit anything or should be indicted on any penalties by the NCAA? The NCAA is already a screwed up institution in of itself. So personally, no. I don't think anything should be done to Michigan. It's just sign stealing. There's a lot worse things they could be doing, like Bountygate years ago in the NFL, players getting paid on the Saints defense to hurt opposing players. That's something to reckon with. That's not nearly as bad as stealing signs because you still have to go out, perform, and play and stop whatever it is that Ohio, in Michigan's case, what their offense is going to do. And in fact, they could audible out of that play that they decide to run on offense, or they could audible out of a certain defense if a certain call came in. You still have to go out there and stop it. Now, granted, Michigan's a great football team. I think they're one of the top 2 teams in the nation. I'll talk about the college football rankings in a little bit, but yeah, that's my whole 2 cents on it. Do I think anything's going to get done? Nope. Do I think anything really should be done? Nope. So we're just going to leave it at that. All right. So let's transition a little bit. We are going to talk about, where is it? All right. So this is something else I wanted to cover a little bit. Everybody fell in love so quickly with Colorado and Deion Sanders. I was one of them. I was on the hype train. I was beyond hyped, especially since on FanDuel, I got a hell of a payout when I bet Colorado against TCU in the opening week. TCU lost an immense amount of talent to the NFL draft. Max Duggan is no longer the quarterback for TCU. Obviously, they just played in the national championship and just got ramrodded by Georgia. So I felt like that still weighed on the team a little bit for those players who were still in there. And, Colorado came in. Nobody really expected them to go win the national championship. Nobody really expected, the first 4 weeks to turn out how they actually turned out. Honestly, I was quite surprised of how well Shedeur Sanders was playing. I didn't realize he was that good of a damn quarterback. Travis Hunter might be up there with the 3 best college. He might be a top 3 college football player in the entire country. So I get it. I understood the hype. I really did. Completely new team. Upended the entire roster. Now, that's another thing that was very controversial. People hated, where he walked in day one and said to that Colorado team and said, I got luggage coming with me, and it's Louis. He wasn't shitting. He wasn't kidding around because he got some outstanding players that came over. And he did tell some of the athletes on Colorado's team, like, a lot of you are going to be hitting the portal. You're going to be transferring out, going to another school. A lot of people were outraged at that he told some kids, maybe you should transfer. While I understand it, because that's a kid's life, that is his dream to play at college football. They went to Boulder. They went to Colorado for a reason. They wanted to play for the Buffaloes. But my whole thing is, why should anyone else's words influence you on what you should be doing? Think about that. If I was told, let's say I went to the University of Miami, because I would love to, and head coach Mario Cristobal came up to me, I think you should transfer. I don't think you're good enough. I don't think you're going to play here. I have never been one to quit. I would rather let my play on the field determine whether I'm going to stay or not. Because no matter what, I'm not going to be told what I should be doing, especially how to live my life when it comes to stuff like that. But for some people to be so outraged that he went and said that, while I understand where they're coming from, at the same time, have the stones to say, no, I'm going to prove my worth. I'm going to prove it. I belong here. I'm going to prove that I'm going to be a Colorado Buffalo, which I feel like that would be the utmost respectful thing to do for yourself, at least, if you're a player. But again, I'm not going to judge anyone who decided to go to the portal, because maybe it is possible that you knew your limits. You knew what you would or would not be capable of doing on the football field. Like, I would understand that, but for the public outcry over what he did, walking into Colorado and completely basically flipping the entire roster and flipping the entire coaching staff, I understand why he did it, but at the same time, why should his words have influenced you to definitively leave or definitively stay? It's like, no, do what's best for you. When you're a college athlete, I feel like you have to do stuff that's best for you when it comes to playing time and everything. That's your dream. But it shouldn't be the coach's, like, you shouldn't let your coach's words really determine that. I don't understand the outcry on that. Like, I get it, but it's more, I would take it more from a player's perspective. It's like, no, I'm not going to be told I'm not good enough. I'm going to work my ass off to become the best possible player at any given position. So that's my whole thing on it. But back to Colorado as a whole. I was on the hype train a little bit, especially going into, my biggest mistake was really thinking they can compete with Oregon. I really thought they could. I thought it would have been a shootout. Oregon took the hammer to them. Oregon beat them down like no one's business. I believe it was like 45-7 or something like that, 45-6. I think the spread was like, 18 or something, maybe even 20, something like that. Either way, Eugene, Jim Beam, Krispy Kreme, don't matter. I said Colorado was covering that spread against Oregon. I was completely wrong. Oregon already looks like a top 5 team in this country. And we'll talk a little bit, like I said, I'll talk about the college football playoff in a little bit. But I didn't realize how bad Colorado's defense is. Right in front of me on the NCAA's webpage, I have the rankings for total defense in the entire country. So, obviously, you got the guys at the top. You got Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Bama, Miami. Like the top 1 through 30, you got some of the best, obviously the best statistical defenses in the country. Obviously, some teams I would not say can beat other teams. Like Air Force statistically has the 3rd best defense in the nation. They're not the 3rd best defense in the nation. I'm sorry. But I get it. It's based off who they've played. So, but Michigan up there, the big time schools, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Clemson, Texas A&M, Georgia. Miami beat Texas A&M, by the way. That was nice. Notre Dame, Nebraska, Louisville, Oregon, Bama, Utah, Virginia Tech, Miami, Texas, Tennessee, Florida State. I mean, the list goes on of all these Power 5 teams. You know who? There is only one team that is worse than Colorado when it comes to overall defense, and that's North Texas. Colorado is ranked 129th out of 130 when it comes to total defense. Do you realize how monumentally horrible that is? Literally one of the worst, literally second to last, basically the worst damn defense in all of college football. They average giving up yardage to opponents. They give up on average 475.4 yards a game. That's unheard of. Average of 6.27 yards a play against Colorado's defense. Already almost 4,000 yards put up against the Buffalo's defense. It just doesn't stop. So, while I get it, you overhauled an entire team, but fuck, man, I don't get how you can have all those transfers, all that talent. You couldn't find an offensive line or anybody on defense. So, and that was my fault. I never thought that. I didn't realize it was this bad until I started looking at stats in college football. Obviously, I think Colorado's 4-4 right now. They've just been shit in the bed lately. I'll check that real quick. Why not? Okay, I don't know why it did that, but okay, I'll check that, and I'll put it in the description. I believe Colorado's 4-4 right now, but moral of the story, the hype train, I get it, but Deion Sanders, I think he is a good coach. I really do. I mean, you just don't see what he did at Colorado that often. Completely overhaul the entire team and expect nobody. And here's the thing. I didn't expect them to go to the national championship. I didn't expect them to compete for the Pac-12 championship. I didn't expect that. Now, I expected USC to. That's another thing. USC's defense, complete garbage. They're right up there with Colorado, but they're ranked 111th out of 130. Again, not much better. On average, they give up 420 yards a game to their opponents. Obviously, this will be posted on Monday, and I believe USC will be playing Oregon this past weekend. I believe it's at the Coliseum. I think that game will be a shootout. It's one thing for Colorado, Oregon, to stop Shedeur Sanders and the Colorado offense, who was on the hype train and everything at Eugene, Oregon, noon kickoff and everything. But I don't see Oregon clamping down on USC quite like they did Colorado. Again, I could be completely wrong. I still think Oregon's going to win. I'll say 45-42, a final score. I think it's going to be a shootout because I believe it is at USC, and that is a tough place to play for any college. So, but give me the Ducks 45-42 to beat USC over this past weekend. And obviously I could be wrong, but we'll see soon enough. So we talked a little bit about college football, talked a little bit about, everything going on with Michigan, and I ranted about Michigan State and that situation, which is baffling to me still. It's ridiculous. It drives me insane. But let's talk about the college football playoff rankings that just came out. And oh boy, there's some outrage about this. Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. And then the first two out, Washington at 5 and Oregon at 6. I'm sorry, Ohio State is not the number one team in the nation. Do I think they're top 4? Yes. They are not number 1 in the nation. I don't think Ohio State is all it's cracked up to be. I know they're undefeated. I get all that. But they have struggled immensely early on in games against low-level teams. I don't think Ohio State's all it's cracked up to be. I don't think Kyle McCord is necessarily the answer. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. Don't get me wrong. The dude's playing at Ohio State. I would have loved to play quarterback at Ohio State if I was a quarterback or had any sense of athleticism. But for Ohio State, I'll play devil's advocate for that, for Ohio State fans who don't like Kyle McCord. Now, statistically, I don't think Kyle McCord is having such a bad year. Not at all. I'll check I'm going to check on Collin Cowherd's stats real quick. 2,163 yards, 14 touchdowns, a quarterback rating of 76. Okay. I get it. That's not necessarily the standard that Ohio State is looking for their quarterback play. But I'll play devil's advocate for it because I honestly don't believe he's a bad quarterback because he's playing at Ohio State for a reason. However, Ohio State has been the most spoiled team in the nation when it comes to quarterbacks over the past 15 to 20 years. You guys, Ohio State, went from Troy Smith to Terrell Pryor to Braxton Miller to J.T. Barrett to Cardell Jones to the late, great Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, and C.J. Stroud. 7 top-tier quarterbacks in all of college football when they played at that time. They were at the top end every single year. Collin Cowherd is none of those guys. Maybe in the future, maybe give him another year or two, maybe he turns into that. But I think Ohio State fans need to slow down a little bit when it comes to judging Collin Cowherd so much. Even though I have my own thoughts and opinions on it, again, I lean more to this side actually because of how spoiled Ohio State has been with quarterbacks over the past 15 to 20 years. You don't have that happen often. Great quarterback to excellent superstars at quarterback year in and year out. Ohio State, if you wanted to mention a quarterback in the Heisman race, more than likely you'd be mentioning an Ohio State Buckeye quarterback. That's just how it was. So I have my reservations on it. I don't think Ohio State is the number one team in the nation. The correct order that I would have put them in, Michigan is just playing lights out. I'm sorry. Don't say it's because of sign stealing because they're still beating people by 40. You're going to tell me sign stealing is the difference between a 40-point swing? Bullshit. No, that's not at all the case. So I would put Michigan at 1. I would put Georgia at 2. I would put Ohio State at 3 and Florida State at 4. And then obviously you can interchange Washington and Oregon. I think obviously Washington beat Oregon, but it was a gun show. It was gunslinging all over the place. So those two are interchangeable. I think overall the committee did an okay job, but I know why they put Ohio State at 1. I do know why. It's because of the strength of schedule to this point right now. Ohio State has played Penn State. I believe it was at Penn State, I think. I don't remember too well. But they played Penn State, and they had to go to Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame shit the bed with 10 people on the field on that final play. Notre Dame had that in the bag. They pissed it away. Bonehead decision, 10 people on the field. Love how Al Golden is on Notre Dame's staff when he damn near ruined my favorite school. But, I think Notre Dame should have won that game. But that's neither here nor there, so I don't really care. But as far as the rankings go, I would also say, it's kind of convenient, isn't it? Ohio State gets the 1 seed. So let's say all the other teams win out. Let's say, okay, Georgia wins out, they win the SEC. They'll be in. Florida State, Miami first. But Florida State, let's say they run the table, win the ACC. They're going to be in because they'll be undefeated and a conference champion. Now it comes to Ohio State, Michigan, because whoever wins that game is going to represent that part of the division in the Big Ten championship. Very conveniently, I feel. If Michigan beats Ohio State, obviously they're going to be propelled and they're going to go to the Big Ten championship. I don't think Iowa, Nebraska, it doesn't matter who. I don't think anybody's stopping Michigan. If Michigan's biggest roadblock ahead is the Buckeyes. If they beat the Buckeyes, they're going to 99% probability be in the college football playoff. So I'll leave that at that. But if Ohio State loses to Michigan, they're conveniently placed to get the 4th spot. So we have Georgia, conference champion, and in the college football playoff. Undefeated conference champion, playoff. Michigan, undefeated conference champion, playoff. Florida State, undefeated conference championship, playoff. Washington is still going to have to play USC. Oregon still has to play USC. Or wait, I don't know if Washington still plays USC. But either way, it's going to be a dogfight for the Pac-12 championship game. More than likely, it's not going to be an undefeated Pac-12 champion. Obviously, depending on who wins it, that could shake up everything. But conveniently, let's say an undefeated Pac-12 team, let's say Washington were to make it, and I'm not entirely sure if the Pac-12 is split up in two divisions or if it's just one big division. But I think I could find that out right now, actually. Oh, I love talking college football. Okay, first, let's go back to the Big Ten Championship. So, Michigan and Ohio State. These two are undefeated right now. Obviously, whoever wins that game, more than likely both teams are going to be undefeated when they play in the final game of the year. Whoever wins that game, they're going to the Big Ten Championship out of the East. Now, the West, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Northwestern, Purdue, Illinois. None of those teams are going to beat Ohio State or Michigan. It's just not plausible. It's not going to happen. So whoever wins the East in the Big Ten is more than likely going to the college football playoff. More than likely. So let's go down. Okay, so it is true. The Pac-12 conference is all one division. Colorado, sit your ass down. You ain't going nowhere anymore. But we have a dogfight between 5 teams right now. Washington, obviously undefeated at the top of the Pac-12, followed closely by USC, followed by Oregon. That's subject to change after this past weekend, obviously. Then you got Oregon State and you got Utah. Hypothetically speaking, if they were just to knock each other off, not have a single undefeated team in the Pac-12 championship. USC already has 2 losses. Oregon has a loss. Oregon State has 2 losses. Utah has 2 losses. So let's say hypothetically Washington loses 2 games or loses a game. And then let's say it's USC and Washington in the Pac-12 championship. You got a 1-loss Washington team. They'll probably drop low in the polls. And then you got a 2-loss USC team. And let's say USC wins. They're going to take Washington completely out of the college football picture, the playoff picture. So what do you do with that 4th spot? Well, Ohio State only has 1 loss. That's where the dilemma comes in. Are you going to put a 2-loss conference champion in the college football playoff, or are you going to put a 1-loss Ohio State Buckeye team? I think the NCAA also tried to do this last year. Have Michigan play TCU, have Ohio State play Georgia. Let's be completely honest. If Michigan and Ohio State played each other in the national championship, that would be the biggest game to ever be played. If Ohio State and Michigan played in a national championship for it all, that would be the most watched football game probably in history. And rightfully so. It's the rivalry, the game of all of football. I don't even think rivalries in the NFL compare as much as it does to the game in college football. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think it's very interesting. I really do. I think the rankings, they're already set up for drama to happen at the end of the year. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma. It's very early. Obviously, the first college football playoff rankings just came out. It's the first. We still got plenty more to go, a lot of more weeks to go until the end of the season. So now I'm going to give you my prediction for the college football playoff. So I already told you how I would rank the first 4 teams right now. Michigan at 1, Georgia at 2, Florida State at 3, Ohio State at 4. So that's right now. Where's it going to be at the end of the season? I think Florida State's getting knocked out eventually. And I'm not going to say who is going to do it. I don't think Florida State's making it. My Final Four is going to be Michigan at the 1 seed, Georgia at the 2, Oregon at the 3, and just for shits and giggles, even though I said they're probably not going to win it, I'll put Florida State at 4. So I'm going back on my word. I'll say that Florida State is going to make it. So Michigan at the 1, Georgia at the 2, Oregon at the 3, Florida State at 4. That's my college football prediction. That's the college football playoff prediction. And then in that case, it would be 1 versus 4, so it would be Michigan versus Florida State. That would be a very interesting game. I think Michigan would come out on top on that. And then Oregon and Georgia. I think the Ducks would shock Georgia. This is the best Oregon Ducks defense I have probably ever seen. And I've been watching college football since I was real little. Everybody loved the showtime, the speed, the quickness of the old Oregon teams with Chip Kelly and everything. Everyone who remembers DeAnthony Thomas, LaMichael James, if you watch those players, you loved Oregon football for sure, just like I did. Fantastic time to watch them. And then obviously they had Marcus Mariota for a time, had a couple down years, but now they're back into the national championship picture, and I think this might be Oregon's most complete team. So I think it would come down to a Michigan and an Oregon national championship. And who would I crown king of college football? Miami. Just kidding. I would take the Oregon Ducks. I think Oregon's defense, while Michigan's defense is great, I think this pure experience from Bo Nix has the most starts out of anybody in college football history. I think the veteran leadership of Oregon and Bo Nix, I think it's enough to propel them to a national championship. So you're here to hear first. I'm claiming the Oregon Ducks as the 2023 college football playoff national champions. And now, as we're running out of time here, for shits and giggles, my Super Bowl prediction. Steelers, just kidding again. Can't put Pittsburgh up there yet. But I honestly think out of the AFC, geez, this is so tough. I think it's going to be Baltimore. I think Baltimore is just primed and ready to take on anybody in the division. I'm going to take Baltimore. And out of the NFC, this is going to shock a lot of people, and I probably jinx them right now, but I don't care. The Detroit Lions. I have so much faith in the Detroit Lions to make a deep playoff run, possibly a Super Bowl. I'm going to take those underdogs. The NFC might have to go through Detroit in anyway, and that's not really an easy place to play right now. So, and don't worry about Lamar Jackson beating up on the Lions. I think it was a week or two ago. Lamar Jackson, I think, in his career has only lost to one NFC. Like when they play him for the first time, I believe he's only lost one game. So, it's realistically to see how Lamar Jackson is just that good against, obviously, they don't play him every year. Whereas Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, we beat up on them every now and then because we've seen Lamar Jackson so much and we know what he's accustomed to and we know his tendencies. So I am might be a shitty prediction, but I'll do 2 predictions. Baltimore is going to be, there's 2 possibilities in my opinion. Baltimore, I see winning the AFC regardless in both scenarios. Obviously health is a concern for the team, but because that's what's plagued them over the past couple years. But I'll take Baltimore to represent the AFC. It's going to either be Detroit or San Francisco. Possibility. I'm not sure which one I want to lean with anymore because I've seen how Brock Purdy has been playing. Not that great the past couple weeks, but I do think he bounces back. It is the Niners. They're a fantastic team. They got injuries right now. Those guys will be back. Debo's going to come back. Brock's going to be better. So, yeah, that's going to be my prediction. Baltimore, no matter what, and either the Lions or 49ers to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up, so